G'day. Welcome back to the Super Freak podcast. Today I have a special episode for you because this is not necessarily me teaching you something. Today I'm going to read you a story. Now, before you go, I don't need a story and flick this off. This is not just any story. I really strongly encourage you to stick around and listen to this one. It's a short story from my favorite book. The book is called U Squared by Price Pritchett. And I'm going to read you the story and tell you why this story is the foundation of everything that I do. This was a life-changing story for me, and it's often a life-changing story for my clients too. So I'm going to read you the story, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the story. Now, if you've been a client of mine before, you will have heard this story. I read it at the beginning of coaching programs, at the beginning of workshops, at the beginning of my events. It is just that powerful, and it is just the kind of story that I want you all to have as a context for every conversation we have on this podcast from here on out. So the book is called U Squared, and it's by Price Pritchett, PhD. A true story. I'm sitting in a quiet room at the Millcroft Inn, a peaceful little place hidden back among the pine trees about an hour out of Toronto. It's just past noon, late July, and I'm listening to the desperate sounds of a life or death struggle going on a few feet away. There's a small fly burning out the last of its short life's energies in a futile attempt to fly through the glass of the window pane. The whining wings tell the poignant story of the fly's strategy. Try harder. But it's not working. The frenzied effort offers no hope for survival. Ironically, the struggle is part of the trap. It is impossible for the fly to try hard enough to succeed at breaking through the glass. Nevertheless, this little insect has staked its life on reaching its goal through raw effort and determination. This fly is doomed. It will die there on the windowsill. Across the room, 10 steps away, the doors open. 10 seconds of flying time, and this small creature could reach the outside world it seeks. With only a fraction of the effort now being wasted, it could be free of this self-imposed trap. The breakthrough possibility is there. It would be so easy. Why doesn't the fly try another approach? Something dramatically different. How did it get so locked in on the idea that this particular route and determined effort offer the most promise for success? What logic is there in continuing until death to seek a breakthrough with more of the same? No doubt this approach makes sense to the fly. Regrettably, it's an idea that will kill. Trying harder isn't necessarily the solution to achieving more. It may not offer any real promise for getting what you want out of life. Sometimes, in fact, it's a big part of the problem. If you stake your hopes for a breakthrough on trying harder than ever, you may kill your chances for success. And that's the end of the story. It's a beautiful book. I'm going to leave a link to the website where you can purchase this book for yourself. Not going to lie, if you're in Australia, it's really hard to get, but it's something that I gift to my clients. It's just a beautiful book. But let's talk about the story for a second. What might it feel like to be the fly if it were to move away from the window? I imagine being the fly and looking out the window and seeing where I'm trying to go and seeing it. It's right there. It's right in front of me. And then just feeling like I keep hitting my head. It's hurting. I'm exhausted. It's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Like, what's going on here? I imagine that it would feel really weird to turn the opposite direction and go that way, almost like that would be wrong. Price Pritchett talks about in this book, like, raw effort and determination and this particular strategy. Like, how did we decide that this is the way? For whatever reason, we have evidence maybe, we can see the end in sight, we feel like we are close, there's activity happening, something, I have to be getting there, but regrettably it will kill. I'm someone who's experienced major burnout in my life. I was out of action for around 2.5 years. And so when I heard this story, I went, oh my goodness, that is 100% what I had to do in order to heal and in order to recreate my own life after being told I was never going to heal. More of the same, and determined effort was just, it was not going to get me anywhere. But I don't think this just applies to burnout. I honestly think it applies to any time you are looking to take a leap, to achieve something wonderful, to perhaps move through a challenge that you've been experiencing, or to go from good to great. Looking at, what is my strategy? What is more of the same? What got me here? And is that what's going to get me there? Is raw, determined effort the most efficient strategy for getting where I'm going? Or am I trying to use raw, determined effort to work through something really difficult where if I could just do the opposite, if I could just turn around and go the other way, will I actually achieve the same result without trying so hard? This is a really difficult and confronting question to ask, especially if you're someone who is used to using raw effort and determination to achieve what you want. If you're someone who has worked really hard for what they have. If you're someone who has been conditioned and taught that hard work is what pays off. This podcast episode is not about telling you that you should just, not work hard. This is not a we don't work hard podcast, because we know there are times when you just got to get your hands dirty, work hard. It's very rewarding. But we're not working hard for working hard's sake. Just like we don't use growth for growth's sake. It's intentional. So let's have a look at imagining what it's like to be the fly. Because what might it be like to be the fly if you were the fly and you could see your, goal right in front of you, but it's just not happening. Like you try and you try and you try again. If you were to move away from the window and fly in the opposite direction, even just for 10 seconds, but I doubt the fly knew that it would be only 10 seconds of flying in the opposite direction. But even to turn around for 1 second and fly in the opposite direction, what does it feel like? It feels like you are giving up. Am I quitting? Am I lost? Am I never going to get there? Am I walking away? Am I being ridiculous? It's such a difficult thing to imagine, turning your back on where you are going and going in the opposite direction, and that being the thing that gets you where you want to go. So to give you real examples of this, I've had clients before where they're pushing really hard in one direction. Maybe there's a specific launch or a specific product or a specific person or a specific strategy that they're trying to implement. They know they need to do this, and then they need to do this, and then they need to do this, and then they need to do that. And that's what's going to get them there. But this is not working. It's not happening the way that they want. It's not happening fast enough. There's all this complication. It's just there are doors being shut. But we've just got to, dig our heels in and go a little bit harder and try a little bit harder and be a bit more organized. And when you take a step back, when you look at it from different angles, if the fly could look at this from above, they would see the map of where else they need to go. The 30,000-foot view is what I would call that in business. You can start to see, maybe I don't need to do that step at all. You might ask yourself certain questions that find the right tasks that make every other task irrelevant, clearing your to-do list almost immediately. Catching yourself when you're trying harder is also really hard, especially if you're someone who is used to working hard. That's how you've always gotten what you've gotten. You're not questioning your work ethic. Catching yourself when you're trying harder, so difficult, especially if you're someone who's just used to pushing through to achieving, because that's what's worked in the past. You wouldn't question that. You'd be more likely to question, environmental factors or your team or whatever it might be. So for you specifically, listener, what is your moment that you realize this has gone beyond working hard and I'm pushing it and I'm going nowhere? My strategy is futile. What's your moment? How do you know when you've gone beyond just hard work and you've gone into trying harder, determined effort in the wrong direction? How do you know when you're doing it? How do you know when you're being the fly? Maybe for you it feels like you're just trying harder and harder than ever and you're not seeing results. You're going nowhere. Or maybe everywhere you turn, it feels like there's a roadblock or a closed door in front of you. Everywhere you turn, just, again and again and again. Maybe you can see the end in sight and you know that if you just push that little bit harder, even though you are getting tired and it feels like it's getting hotter in here, it feels like it's more pressure than ever, but if you just keep pushing through, you'll get there. Maybe you just keep telling yourself, just one more week, one more month, one more. Maybe you're doing what you've always done and you've never even thought about looking for other ways that it can be done faster or easier. Maybe you're resisting certain things like technology, or maybe you're resisting looking at the way that you manage your time or the way that you accept help. Maybe you know about the next way you can go. You actually know there's another strategy. You know there's technically an easier way to do it. But you've decided that's the wrong way. That's not for you. It's bad. It's wrong. Maybe it's what someone else does and you don't love that person, or you've just decided there is a wrong way. There is such a thing as a wrong way, and that's it. How do you know when you're being the fly? I can't answer this for you. It's so individual and it's so unique, but we all do have an answer. We have telltale signs of when we're being the fly. It's like the canary in the coal mine. I don't like this example because a poor little canary, but if you think about it, the canary in the coal mine is the telltale sign that something is wrong underground. The oxygen levels are incorrect because the canary is unwell or unfortunately it dies. The canary in the coal mine is the telltale sign that something in the air is not right. What's your canary in the coal mine that tells you, maybe I'm being the fly? Because no one's going to come along and say, hey, guess what? If you just go 10 seconds in the other direction, there is no clear strategy that works for every single person in every single situation at every single starting point. So there's nothing really for you to do with this episode. But think. What does it look like when I'm being the fly? How do I know? What's my canary in the coal mine? What are my telltale signs? What does it bring up for you actually when you think about, maybe I am being the fly? Maybe you think to yourself, I actually don't know what else I can do. I can't see where the opposite direction is. I feel like I've gone in all directions. Just be with it. Be with anything that comes up from listening to this story. The idea is that it makes you think. This is why I love this book so very much. There's so much to it. We're all being the fly in one way or another. So where in your life or your business or your relationships or your health are you trying to press on doing more of the same and not getting the result? Are you open to giving yourself permission for it to be a little easier, a little faster, a little less effort? What if more of the same means never getting where you want to go? What might it look like to do the opposite, even just as an experiment? What resistance do you have coming up about doing something different or the opposite even? I'll leave you with this for today. But before I do, I'll say one thing. If you loved this story, if it did to you what it does for me every time I read it, and by the way, every time I read it, including today, I think, I can so apply this. For some of you who are listening, it would have lit something up in you, like awakened something, opened a new door, maybe where you didn't realize there was one, even if you don't know where that door is or what it looks like. You would have felt something shift or light up or wake up. If this is you, I want you to know this story sets the foundation for how you can go from good to great and create your next chapter. You know, the one you kind of swoon over maybe. But maybe you haven't even taken any action on because it requires a completely different version of you in order to happen. But not only for that to happen, but to happen with more ease, more speed, more surprise than you can imagine, more delight. There's a reason I always say everything you want is so much closer than you think. Stay curious and stay open. And this story is an invitation to you to let yourself go there, to give yourself permission to want what you want. And then all those reasons that say you can't have it right now, they're linked to how possibly we are overcommitting to a certain strategy and a certain level of effort. Now, if you have ever considered doing some coaching with me, please make sure you put your name on the wait list for my upcoming coaching programs, the Bloom Business Incubator or the Fierce Salon. So much of what we do is based on this philosophy. One of our mottos is don't be the fly. So Bloom, the Bloom Business Incubator, is for folks who specifically have service-based businesses. You can be online or offline, but we will be looking to move you a little bit more online just for sustainability and scaling's sake, who want to reach the milestone of making consistent, reliable income around $5,000 to $10,000 a month, though you may be at a different level. That's why there's a range, and that's fine. Just that feeling of consistent, sustainable, reliable income without just smashing more social media, but leveraging all the cogs that make a business tick. Sustainable income isn't just about making it for 3 months in a row. It's about being able to know which levers to pull and when, depending on the season of business you're in, for the rest of your life. That's sustainable. So you can get sick, you can raise a family, you can move countries, you can, go through stuff when it happens and not need to worry that everything will fall apart because you understand what you're doing and why. That's sustainable. So that's Bloom. The Fierce Salon is an extension of Bloom. This is for the same person. We're just at different levels of business. And I've never done it like this before. I usually just launch the Fierce Salon, but I'm really keen this year to create 2 separate spaces for folks at different levels so we can have really specific conversations about the specific challenges that people are going through. So the Fierce Salon this year is for folks who are making consistent income already, usually, but who are ready to go from good to great, but who know they can't do it with more of the same. And the Fierce Salon will show you and coach you through this moment of what I call being the fly, and give you a way to move through not only this kind of upper limit, but a strategy for moving through every upper limit for the rest of your life in a way that feels like more you than ever. It's when you know that it's not necessarily your knowledge in the way or your skills. It's your own self-leadership and not being able to see outside of yourself because you're in it yourself. Your ability to really think your way through in a critical and different way. In the Fierce Salon, yes, we talk business and money and strategy and all that, of course, but when you're playing at this different level, the conversation is just slightly different. So that's the Fierce Salon. It's never been a better time to do one of these programs with me. Not only have they been going for such a long time, but everything's been rearranged to specifically suit exactly the stage that you're at. The pricing is different. The programs are longer. Like I said, never been a better time, but you'll find out more when you sign up. So I can't wait to welcome you in, and I will leave all the links below, and it's free to join the waitlist. But when we do open the doors, you will receive a super generous discount to join us when the doors open, and early access to sign up because the spaces are limited. So even if you're not sure, pop yourself on the waitlist. You can find out more. So that's all you need to do today. Beyond that, I really want you to think to yourself, where am I being the fly? Where am I being the fly? Where am I not letting myself make this easier? Where am I pushing harder with more of the same? Where am I convinced that if I just try a little bit harder or maybe just be a bit more organized, things will change? Where could I potentially do the opposite? Where have I decided that the opposite is wrong? Fuel and food for thought. So remember, everything you want is so much closer than you think. So stay curious and stay open. I will see you soon.